is, Alfa Romeo has felt like it's started to lose its way a little bit. Sure, you've got the Alfa 4C, which is a brilliant car, mid-engined, rear-wheel drive, carbon fibre, all good things. But the rest of the range, you've got the Giulietta and the Mito, and front-wheel drive hatchbacks isn't really what Alfa is known for. It's not what it built its name on. Think of the prestige and the history in the name Alfa Romeo. Well, finally, it feels like Alfa Romeo is getting back into its stride, and it's starting off with this. It's the Giulia, and it's a rear-wheel drive saloon car, and you can get one with 500 horsepower. Now, first I'll start by saying that this isn't the model that you're probably thinking of. When people think of the new Giulia, I get the feeling they have in mind the Giulia Quadrifoglio, which is the 500 horsepower twin-turbo V6 monster, really. It's a monster. This is a slightly more relaxed Giulia Super. Now, overall, you've got 5 engines to choose from in the new Giulia. You've got the 500 horsepower V6, you've got a 200 horsepower or 280 brake horsepower 2-litre petrol, or you've got a 2.2-litre diesel with either 150 brake horsepower or 180 brake horsepower. That is what I'm in at the moment. It's a 180 brake horsepower 2.2-litre diesel. Now, it's not the most exciting Giulia you can buy, I'm confident of that, but it's in a market of saloons, so diesels are probably going to be quite popular. 2.2-litre diesel, it's an all-new, all-aluminium engine, and 0 to 60 in 7.1 seconds. And actually, it feels pretty nippy. Now, I know putting a diesel engine in an Alfa Romeo for a lot of people is just sacrilege, frankly, but this engine is really, really good. Redline is at 4,500 RPM, but you find yourself changing gear at about 3,500 RPM, because before that is when you get most of its power and most of its torque. After that, it feels like it's wheezing a little bit. But it pulls really, really smoothly, and it's really quiet as well, and it's got that surge. Below 3,500 RPM, it's got the surge that you associate with diesels, and it does get down the road at quite a reasonable pace. 7.1 seconds, yeah, it feels like that. It's not fast, but it's not slow. And as well, it's quiet and refined. Like some diesels can sound like boats. This doesn't. It's just very, very smooth, very easy to live with. I've got a little wheel down here that says DNA on it, or as some people have read it, and what that does is it changes the characteristics of the engines. Now, the first mode is A, which stands for Advanced Economy. The second mode is Normal, and the third mode is Dynamic. Advanced efficiency, well, that's the mode that you want if you're on the motorway, because it starts to numb out some of the little movements in your foot that would normally harm your economy. Normal and dynamic, if you're going to have fun and go out and drive this car and actually try and enjoy it, you want to have it in one of those two modes, because when it's in the economy mode, it slackens it off so much that you don't have the throttle response that you want to be able to enjoy it. So normal, completely acceptable, and dynamic is when it actually feels really, really quite spiky. For a diesel, again, it just picks up, you put your foot down, and it's got a very sharp throttle response. And also, with the automatic gearbox, it holds it in the gear slightly longer. Now, the Giulia is rear-wheel drive, but there's no way of actually exploring that rear-wheel drive feeling, and that's because there is no way of turning the traction control off. There's nothing in the menus, there's no button hidden around somewhere, there's no way of doing it. And to be honest, that's a bit of a letdown, because there's only so far you can go and only so far you can enjoy a chassis if you can't turn the traction control off. The rear wheels, the second that there's a little bit of slip on them, the traction control cuts in and that's it. Which is frustrating. I would like to have the option of turning that off. I know a 180 brake horsepower diesel Alfa Romeo is probably not going to be a drift king, but still, to enjoy that feeling of rear wheel drive, it would be nice to have that option, and it doesn't give you that. The steering is sharp, but to be honest, it's almost too sharp. It's very quick steering, which I think on its own could be fine, because I quite like the idea that you make a small adjustment to the wheel and you get a response, but it's too light. It needs a bit more weight to it, because at the moment I don't really know what the front tyres are doing. And the front tyres have got loads of grip. It really does point and turn this car, but I would prefer a bit more weight to it. Granted, in dynamic there is more weight to the steering, but I would just prefer a bit more weight. It just reassures you having more weight to the steering. The suspension is a bit of a mixed bag, if I'm honest, because sometimes it feels very comfortable and other times it feels like a bump can unsettle it quite a lot. For the most part though, it is very firm, it's very flat. I think that's one of the reasons why the front end can feel so pointy and precise. It's because you haven't got an awful lot of roll. Gearbox, well, in Europe you get a choice of a manual or an automatic, but in the UK we only get the automatic. But it is a really, really good automatic gearbox. It's an 8-speed automatic gearbox, and it's so good. Really it is. It's very, very smooth. If you leave it to its own device as an automatic, it's really, really smooth. You don't notice it working in the background. And because it's got 8 ratios, you're going to get really good economy from it. But there's also the option of changing gears manually, and you've got these gorgeous, gorgeous metal paddles behind the steering wheel. And the gearbox responds to each pull on the paddle. And what I really like, and I didn't want to use the name Ferrari in this video because I know that's what a lot of people do, but I'm afraid I'm going to have to use it. The gearbox behaves the same as it does in a Ferrari, and by that I mean if you pull on both paddles at the same time, it slots it into neutral, and to pull away again, you just pull the up paddle on the right hand side and you're back into gear. That is quite cool, and I really, really like it. I'm in 7th gear at the moment. Pull a paddle, change, 6, 5, 4. It's not super, super fast, but I'm moving pretty quick now. Sometimes automatics get a bit of a beating because DSGs are so much quicker, but actually there's nothing wrong with this gearbox at all. It's quick when you need to be, and the rest of the time it's beautifully smooth. Although, and I don't know how they deal with this in Italy, but if you park your car in the sun, these paddles get boiling hot. You know when you leave a spoon in some boiling water and then you come back to it and you touch it and you feel like your hand's going to melt off? That's what happens in this. So don't park it in the sun. Maybe get some little gearbox paddle mitts to keep it cool when it's in the sunshine. Practical advice. Looks, well, look at it. I mean, it is gorgeous. I got up one day to do photos at about 6 a.m. and I was absolutely knackered and I just wanted to be back in bed. And yet when I parked this up, the sun was rising and I just looked at it and thought, wow, that is genuinely one of the best looking cars on sale right now. And it's a saloon car, and it's an Alfa Romeo. They've just nailed the proportions and they've nailed some of the details as well. It's a really, really stunning car. And it's just a saloon car. It's a normal saloon car to go up like BMW 3 Series and Mercedes C-Class. Out of all of them, which one is the best looking? This one, by far. It's really, really gorgeous. And then when you get inside, it's not the highest quality, and to be honest, there are some things that are missing that I would really, really like. For example, old Alfa Romeos, think 159, they had more aluminium in here. They had more kind of leather and stuff dotted around. And granted, you can spec a bit more up with the options this, but I would prefer it to have more leather, more aluminium, and feel just that little bit more special. And as well, some of the details, some of the little things in here, they're not as premium as you're going to find in an Audi, for example. But to be honest, I don't really care. The paddles, the steering wheel, your driving position, the driving position is perfect, really, really perfect. It's a lovely place to be. It might have its faults, but it's got some character to it. I can't quite put my finger on it, but I really, really like this car. I don't know what it is. I mean, there are things that really, really bug me, like not being able to turn off the traction control and these flaming paddles that I keep burning myself on because it's been such a hot week and I've had to park it in the sun. But there's something about it that grabs me, that's got me hooked for some reason. If I were to have, BMW, Audi or a Mercedes in front of me and this, what would I go for? Well, I know that the other cars are probably slightly better technically, but there's just something about this car that's grabbing me. I don't know, maybe if it was my own money I'd be sensible and go for the BMW or whatever, but driving it now for the week, I've really, really enjoyed it, and people's reaction to it as well has been amazing. There's something special about it. I don't know what it is, but there is something special about it.